Hey guys, Spud here, and at this point there have really been plenty of videos showing off the F-14BU Tomcat from Heatblur. So let's get down to brass tacks here and really drill down and take a deep look at the jet, warts and all, to answer the question, is the BU worth your hard-earned dollars? It's certainly no secret that the Razbam Controversy and the loss of the F-15E Strike Eagle in particular has left a sucking chest wound in the DCS World Community and fan base, and I am certainly no exception to this. And that is exactly why I have been so hyped for the release of the F-14BU from Heatblur. A large, fast, two-seat, long-range, JDAM capable 4th generation strike fighter. Just what the doctor ordered to help heal the DCS World Community and make up for the loss of the vaunted Mudhen. So is it worth the $57 if you're a previous Turkey pilot, or if you're a Bug, Viper, or Mudhen pilot, $110 for the entire Tomcat Collection? But before we get started guys, I am so sorry to have to do the typical YouTuber thing here. But my analytics still show that more than 70% of you guys watching aren't actually subscribed to my channel. And if you could, that would really help me and the channel out. So with that out of the way, let's jump in and get started here. So guys, what even is the F-14BU Tomcat? I've seen a lot of confusion out there in the DCS community, and if you Google search F-14BU, you won't find all that much about it. And that can partially be explained by official manuals and documentation about this variant of the Turkey having the official designation listed as F-14B upgrade as opposed to BU. BU really came about as shorthand for pilots, maintainers, support personnel, and contractors. In short, it was an end-of-life program to bring the F-14B up to a similar standard and capability as the F-14D, and allow for better pilot situational awareness in the air-to-air regime, and allow for precision strike and JDAM capability in the air-to-ground role. It does this through the addition of both off-the-shelf as well as bespoke avionics solutions. This includes the VDIG-R, commonly referred to by aviation fans as the Sparrowhawk HUD, the EGI or Embedded GPS INS, PTID or Programmable Tactical Information Display, CDNU, which is practically ripped straight from an airliner, the Lantern Pod, and very crucially the DFCS, or Digital Flight Control System. The F-14BU is really the culmination of multiple upgrade programs for the entire F-14 family that eschewed AMRAAM integration for further precision strike capability thanks to the very tight budgets of the 1990s. You'll see photos and descriptions of F-14As, Bs, and even Ds sporting various combinations of these systems throughout the 1990s and all the way to her final retirement in 2006. These upgrades, separately and as a package, allowed the Tomcat to serve with distinction throughout operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. Grumman's Big Fighter was no longer relegated to the sidelines like she was in Desert Storm. She was now firmly on the leading edge, quarterbacking coalition strike packages, pushing into downtown Baghdad and deep into the Hindu Kush. The F-14BU really feels like what the Tomcat always should have been if she had been introduced just a few years later and not been subject to savage budget cuts by a Defense Department obsessed with multi-role fighters, such as the multi-role F-15C. And oh god, don't even get me started on the CF that was the FA-18's development that makes the F-35 look like a walk in the park at times. In fact, the F-14BU, in its final form, with all of her upgrades put together that we have here in DCS, very closely resembles Grumman's proposals in the early 1980s for the all-digital, precision strike-capable F-14C. Many Tomcat pilots and Rios that I've spoken to have posited that the F-14BU was truly the deadliest and most effective version of the F-14, thanks to her very airliner-like CDNU, her EGI, and the VDIG-R HUD that far and away surpasses the capabilities of the Kaiser-built HUD in the F-14D Tomcat. So for all of you guys that are bummed Heatblur gave us the BU instead of the Delta, don't be, cause straight from the horse's mouth, we got the better jet. But that brings us to how she feels in DCS, and what all these upgrades mean for us in the DCS rendition of the BU. And well guys, I am extremely pleasantly surprised by Heatblur's F-14BU. She feels completely new, and yet extremely familiar. She's definitely still the F-14 Tomcat we all know and love. But man, this old girl sure has learned some new tricks, and as an aviation historian, it almost makes me sad to see what the Tomcat always could have and should have been. The new DFCS, or Digital Flight Control System, replaces the Tomcat's original AFCS. And while not completely fly-by-wire, it digitally enhances the F-14's hydro-mechanical flight control system through using both existing and additional sensors added to the aircraft to get as close to fly-by-wire as you possibly can in the old F-14B. The DFCS greatly improves the F-14's maneuverability in slow-speed, high AOA flight regimes, while vastly improving stall and spin characteristics and recoveries from both stalls and spins, and all but eliminates adverse yaw and Dutch roll. To highlight just how different jets with DFCS implemented really were, the US Navy did not allow cross-pollination of pilots between squadrons with upgraded jets and those with AFCS jets, and vice versa, without first sending said pilots back to the RAG for additional training first. In DCS World, that means the F-14BU feels like flying a slightly less stable F-15E Strike Eagle, or a slightly floatier and more powerful FA-18C Hornet. She is an absolute joy to fly. You'll be beating Hornet pilots in slow-speed rolling scissors, turning inside fast F-16s trying to outrate you, and embarrassing MiG-29 pilots with a quick and precise one-circle flow fight. You'll no longer be fighting your jet and the enemy, and you'll be expending far fewer brain cells on flying and using far more for situational awareness, tactical flying skills, and weapons employment. Besides making the big fighter even more of a BFM beast, the DFCS makes the Tomcat far safer and easier to fly in all flight regimes. And nowhere is this more noticeable than behind the boat. Thanks to the DFCS's rudder interconnect, you can now fly your approach completely with a stick, and not have to worry about using your feet on the rudders and flying the cross with your stick. This makes things much easier and safer, especially for those nuggets out there. This combined with the velocity carrot and an actual flight path marker makes stacking 3 wires an absolute snap. But don't worry, we're still better than the bug pilots thanks to our 64-foot wingspan. Just don't tell any of the E2 bubbas I said that. And if your squadron simulates the Iranian Air Force or a fictional land-based Air Force, the flight path marker now makes crosswind landings a breeze. No pun intended. But do exercise caution when you first start pulling some G's and doing some aerobatics in the BU. I found her very easy to over-control and got myself into some bad situations before I got used to flying with the DFCS. So I guess that lends credence to the US Navy's policy of sending pilots back to the RAG before they switched between jets with DFCS and AFCS. Of course, in the front seat, the most striking visual difference in the BU is definitely the VDIG-R, or as most know it, the Sparrowhawk HUD. The VDIG-R probably makes the biggest difference for you as the pilot after the DFCS. It completely and totally transforms how you fly and fight in the turkey, and brings Grandpa Tommy kicking and screaming into the 21st century. The situational awareness the new HUD provides the pilot arguably rivals that of the F-18C Hornet, and far and away outclasses the F-16's HUD. It's such a cool feeling and massive confidence booster to be able to fly the Tomcat with your head out of the cockpit, finally. Everything you could possibly need is now on the HUD. A flight path marker, velocity carrot, navigational cues and information, radar and data link contacts, target information, weapons cues, and much, much more is now available with your head firmly outside of the cockpit. I have never been able to fly and fight in the Tomcat with anywhere near approaching the precision the VDIG-R now allows. Formation flying, air-to-air refueling, landing on the carrier, and all manner of tactical and combat tasks are now just made easy. Once I got used to it, I never used the analog gauges down in the cockpit again. They just merely serve as backups now. If only that space could be taken up by a couple of MFDs. Alas, Dick Cheney would have never allowed such a thing. Okay guys, moving on through the VDIG-R now brings us to discussing Jester, or if you prefer a Lady Rio, Jestina, and the F-14BU, and now the rest of the entire F-14 family. And holy crap guys, what a difference having a context button makes in the F-14. Being able to press and hold the context button and point out things I see on my PTID repeater on the HSD, or point to a piece of sky or a spot on the ground, felt absolutely magical. Like I was really communicating with a human Rio, instead of digging through menus to get to something that kinda sorta approximated what I needed from my Rio. And best of all, it all worked. Right now, right when I needed it most, in the heat of an air-to-air engagement or when a SAM is bearing down on me. I will say this though, I'm really disappointed that the Jester wheel isn't clickable. This, in my opinion, really sets Jester 2.0 and the F4E apart from Jester 1.0, or I guess really 1.5 now in the F-14, and is honestly why you haven't seen much Tomcat action on my channel since the release of the F4. However, this is slightly made up for by the improvements to the snappiness and accuracy of head tracking with the Jester wheel here in the F-14, and with the added context button, you won't be fumbling around through menus nearly as often. Thank God. And that really makes up for the lack of clickiness. As well as, to my surprise, female Jester, or as I like to call her, Jestina, sounds awesome. While some take exception to the fact that Jestina was created by AI, please do keep in mind, she was created through an AI tool built in-house by Heatblur to transform more than 15,000 lines of dialogue, using voice samples from one of the Heatblur devs' wives with her and Grey Wolf's consent. And really, she sounds much better in person than she does on YouTube. I think this might be a YouTube audio compression thing. Not to mention, Jestina's a breath of fresh air. No offense to Grey Wolf, but it's nice to change it up. And at this point, I think his Jester voice is practically what my inner monologue sounds like now, especially when I'm flying in DCS. Not to mention the fact that female Jester might actually give you a tactical edge in a large multiplayer mission with tons and tons of radio traffic, where Jester in your backseat can sometimes get lost in the sauce. A female voice can really cut through the cacophony of noise on the radios and deliver you the vital information you need when you need it most. While I never really had as many gripes about Jester as some in the DCS community have had, I hope the F-14BU and the upgrades to Jester coming to the whole Tomcat family will really make people happy about flying the Tomcat solo again. I just hope some of these awesome improvements made to the context button can be brought back up to the F4E in time. Alrighty guys, that brings us now to JDAMs, baby. We can now get the JDAM Blues flying around straight and level for 8 hours at a time, hoping, praying for a tick so we can press the pickle button. At least once. Please, 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 I'm so bored and my butt hurts so bad at this point, and I ran out of piddle packs 2 hours ago. The EGI allows our F-14BU to fix her own ship location to such an accurate degree that we can now generate incredibly precise coordinates for both pre-planned and more or less target of opportunity engagements with JDAMs, or as the BU's avionics architecture likes to call them, GGWs, or GPS guided weapons. Not to mention that we can now start up and align our EGI and be ready to taxi faster than even our FA-18C friends. This is a massive leap forward for the Tomcat, giving her a true all-weather, fire-and-forget precision-guided weapon for attacking, say, a stationary Taliban fighter with a Dishka in the Hindu Kush, taking pot shots at coalition forces, or taking out an SA-3 site on the outskirts of Baghdad in the Diad role. Along with JDAMs comes an extremely robust, and I gotta give huge props to Heatblur here, very intuitive DTC interface in the mission editor for creating pre-planned JDAM missions, as well as multiple flight plans and drawing polygons on the PTID for various airspace boundaries, threat areas, etc., to your heart's content. Also, one of the best uses of the new DTC interface is the ability to configure programs for the BU's new ALE-47 chaff and flare dispensers, the same system found aboard the FA-18C Hornet, allowing for far more precise and effective use against both airborne and ground-based threats. I'm sure you've also seen in some of our footage here so far in this review the new EGI's navigational accuracy, as well as the BU's new digital architecture in MIL standard 1553 data bus unlocks additional features for the Lantern pod, such as air-to-air mode and longer range queuing, of course not to mention Jester's new additions making the Lantern so much easier to use. But all this awesomeness does come at the cost of vastly increased complexity of the entire avionics package in the F-14BU. This is thanks to the bolt-on nature of the upgraded avionics systems and their capabilities, coupled with legacy Tomcat systems, sometimes running in parallel and sometimes even conflicting in the background. Multiple, very familiar switches across both the pilot and Rio seat are rewired and repurposed for interacting with the new systems, while some are completely missing. At last count, I believe I've identified 4 different types of waypoints and flight plans that can be created in the BU. So while the BU is immensely capable, I recommend you stick to the KISS principle when it comes to flight and strike planning. It's very easy to get lost in the sauce while flying this bird. And while you might get up and running fast, it's going to take quite a while to master her, as any good DCS module should really. Alright guys, I could go on and on in this review, and it's already getting a bit long here. So we've covered the good, let's talk about the bad and the ugly. And I can really only think of 2 big reasons why one might balk at purchasing the F-14BU. The first, and I think probably the most relevant here, is the price of the module that is being sold as an upgrade to the existing fleet of F-14 Tomcats we have here in DCS. Heatblur, in various forum posts and newsletters, has stated that the pricing and structure of the F-14BU is integrally linked to the rest of the F-14 family for business, contractual, and technical reasons. Having looked under the hood at some of the game files, from a technical standpoint, it's absolutely the case that the F-14BU relies heavily on legacy Tomcat files and simply couldn't work without them. And of course, as a business entity myself, I certainly agree that the developers of the F-14 should absolutely be compensated for all of the hard work they have put into the Tomcat module since its release many years ago now. But I do worry that the steep price of $110 for the F-14 Ultimate Edition will deter those who are modern era Hornet, Viper, or Strike Eagle fans who would like to fly the Tomcat now that she has been brought into the 21st century. For those who are existing turkey pilots who are on the fence about paying $57 for an upgrade to their Tomcat module, I want to implore to you that this is not simply just an art refresh like the F-5E Remastered. This is truly a completely different aircraft with new capabilities, a totally new flight model, and will give you a completely new but very familiar experience, and is $23 cheaper than a full new module such as an F4E, F16, or FA18, priced at the nominal $80. As a content creator and hopefully advocate for the community, I do hope that maybe one day the different variants of the F-14 can be split up into an a la carte type situation where you can pick and choose which Tomcat you'd like to purchase. So hardcore Cold War warriors can grab the F-14A early and maybe the export model for their Iraq War or Dance of the Vampires reenactment, and modern HUD cripples can pick up the F-14BU. The next sore spot I can see people having with the F-14BU is the issue of AI in the creation of female Jester, and really for me this is a non-issue. This is like the most benign use of AI I have ever seen. A tiny developer made their own AI tool to save time converting 15,000 plus voice lines with the consent of both voice actors. Seems to be the perfect niche for non-destructive AI usage. As an added bonus, I do really like Jestina. Maybe in the future, using similar methods, we could get a Persian Jester. That could be pretty cool. My only other gripe with the BU is I would have really liked to have seen a clickable Jester menu. But from what I've gathered, that just might not be possible with the way Jester and Jestina are coded into the F-14 module. But hopefully, we can see some of the context menu functionality brought to Jester 2.0 in the F4E and the upcoming Tornado GR3. Guys, what's the bottom line here? Is the BU upgrade worth the price of admission? Personally, I would say if you're already a Tomcat owner, absolutely, go for it 100%. You'll definitely be blown away by it. If you're a modern DCS guy or gal who wants to jump into the F-14 now that she has JDAMs and modern systems, I'll say that you're going to absolutely love the BU. She's unbelievably fun and capable and will outfly and fight anything you've flown before. But you'll just have to decide if that price is worth it for you. But what about the most important question I posited at the beginning of the video? Is she the Strike Eagle killer? Will she help heal the gaping wound in the DCS World Community? Can she carry more gas than a 737-8 MAX like an F-15E? No. But 20,000 plus pounds is more than enough for any DCS World map. Can she sling JDAMs? Absolutely. Can she fire a semi-active radar-guided missile in Twiz mode? 100%. And it'll go further than an AMRAAM. Can she fly faster, higher, further than anything else in DCS? You bet. Does she offer more situational awareness than the F-15E when development was unceremoniously stopped? Undoubtedly. In my opinion, the F-14BU is exactly what the doctor ordered to help the DCS World Community heal and move on from the Razbam debacle and the loss of the F-15E. She is truly the Strike Eagle killer. Not to mention the fact that JTACs in Iraq and Afghanistan preferred the FAC-A trained F-14 crews and the large screen of the PTIT, and would take an F-14 over an F-15E anytime, baby. So guys, I hope this video helps you out and helps you make that all-important decision on where to put your hard-earned dollars. So if you like this video, please leave a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. And definitely remember to enjoy this beautiful game.